I'm Lance Lambert. Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Vehicle Show. We are in Escondido, California at the Deer Park Winery and Car Museum. This is a wonderful winery, a wonderful collection of cars. Both are just breathtaking. You're going to get a chance to see some of the cars, meet somebody who knows a lot about these cars, and you're also going to watch me taste a little bit of that wine. So stay tuned, sit back, enjoy the show. You know, all across this great country, there are so many excellent museums, automotive museums that feature the best cars that were ever made. Well, there's one particular museum that we have been trying for 2 years to get into, the Deer Park Auto Museum here in Escondido, California. What a wonderful facility here, and you're going to get a chance to take a look at these, and the person that's going to show us around here is Clark KNAPP. Clark, come on in here.
Hi, Lance. Welcome.
How you doing, Clark? Thank you.
Very good.
So tell me, how did this all come about?
This started back in 1979. Our family had been into automobiles for some time, and growing up in South Mission Beach, there wasn't a lot of parking available there. And in like a lot of beach communities, it's fairly regulated for parking. So every morning at 7:30 a.m., we'd get hauling out of bed, try to track down the cars and move them to the other side of the street. So finally we decided we needed a permanent home and a showcase for these automobiles, and that started in 1979. And that's the year we also planted the vineyard, which is just off of this building down here, and started producing our Chardonnays, putting our automobiles on the labels.
So the love is automobiles or wine?
It is both. It was a couple of family members, my father probably being more into the automobiles, although he grew to love wines, and my uncle, who was the wine master, started out home winemaking in South Mission Beach, and eventually moved up into Napa Valley and established our sister winery there for many years.
I'm not a wine connoisseur, but I'm smart enough to know that anybody that puts classic cars on the label of their wine has to be a very good winemaker.
We do love our wines, although we did get a lot of comments when we featured our Edsel on one of the vintages.
So how did it sell? Was it a big seller, or was it, how does the label affect the sales, you think?
We think sometimes it does, and the Edsel I think people would sometimes take a double look at, but all of these are classically styled automobiles from the past. So they really add, we think, a touch of elegance to the label.
Back in Seattle, I drive a 1958 Rambler American. Do you think that on the label would make a certain bottle of wine a big seller?
Well, we'll see how the grapes were that year before we go to that one.
Yeah, I'll take that as a no. Well, can we take a look around here, see some of the cars?
Sure.
Okay, great.
Follow me.
All right. Clark, on the Packard here, this is a beautiful 1935 Packard that you have. My research, and a lot of the viewers' research, is that the 1935 Packard, when they made the 120s, they did that to kind of save the company. They had to make them a little bit smaller and cheaper to keep the company alive back in 1935. But it's my understanding that this also was kind of, some people think, the beginning of the end. It was cheapening the Packard image just a little bit, and they never really recovered from that, and as a result in the 50s they kind of went out of business.
This car was an introduction of Packard quality to the more commonly accessible driver, and this one they produced 25,000. And it did greatly get more Packard cars out there on the road.
Yeah, back then it saved the day. And the motor in this, what did they power? What part of it?
This is an L-head, straight 8. It produces about 110 horsepower.
I would think back in 1935 that when Packard decided to make these a little more accessible to the auto buyer, that somebody who was now able to acquire a Packard, something so luxurious, would have just been so enthralled and amazed that they were driving down the street in a Packard convertible. It must have been really something back then.
These cars have beautiful lines, great craftsmanship. They're really works of art. So yeah, no, I agree. This would have been quite the car to be driving.
Do you get out in these cars very much? Did you get to use this in parades or car shows? And there are particular cars in the collection that get a lot of public exposure, and some that are just stay tucked away. Where does this fall in that?
This one has predominantly been in the museum building. Almost all of these cars we get frequently requested to bring out on parades, so they are periodically brought out.
And they're maintained. You have somebody that keeps them running for you. And
Yeah, we have a host of people that'll work on the cars, depending on which car it is. We're kind of in a local hotspot for people working and restoring cars, which is great for us.
One of the things I like about the museum, I enjoy unusual cars and orphan cars. You have Ramblers, Nashes, Munces, Kaisers, Frazers, Packards. Did your father have and you have a real love for the orphan cars, or it's just kind of coincidence that brought those kinds of cars here?
My father had started this collection going predominantly with the convertibles, so you'll find almost all ragtops here. He did go for production cars, but the unusual production cars, and a lot of those are the orphan cars of today.
And Clark just commented that we'll notice there's a lot of convertibles here. There are several hundred cars here, and I think there are 2 I've spotted that aren't convertibles. 48 Chrysler Town and Country. What a great looking car.
Yeah, this is an interesting car for Chrysler. They had that a stodgy reputation up to this point, and this car is recognized as one of the cars that uses the most amount of chrome and has a lot of styling and craftsmanship in the wood. So these woodies were quite the looker when they went down the road.
Yeah, it's fascinating that you thought of some older gentleman with his hat on driving a 48 Chrysler, but then you slap a little wood on the side and take the top off, and you think of some young executive and his good-looking wife and maybe their 2 kids in the back seat. This is pretty amazing.
Yeah, these were very stylish cars, which is part of the reason why here at Deer Park Winery and Auto Museum we feature automobiles on our wine, and we did feature this car on it just for those stylistic elements. And if you'd like to, later on we could head up to the winery and try some.
No doubt about that. I don't think anybody will argue with the fact that a 59 Cadillac is considered the epitome of 50s styling, and a Biarritz is above that. It's amazing what they did to this car. Gorgeous car. How did you get this in the collection?
This has been in our family for quite some time. We have stories of this of once my dad was out driving in Escondido and was stopped by the local constabulary because of the hydraulic suspension hadn't fully come up on it, and he thought he had caught some young kids bouncing around in their car. But no, instead he found my folks.
What do you think it is that made these so appealing? Because they're over the top. I mean, these are, besides having the huge fins on them, this particular model, they just troweled on the chrome. Why do you think that is considered such a car that's appreciated by people to this day, even though it was pretty outlandish?
Well, because it is an example of styling extremism. This is seen as the epitome of that era. After this, they didn't have the fins as large. This is kind of the definition of it, and it was a looker car. If you had a car like this, people knew what you were driving.
Yeah, and then the taillights, besides the fins, the combination of the 2 is what makes them so notable. But those, a lot of 59 Cadillac taillights ended up on Corvettes and 55, 6, and 7 Fords, and just a lot of cars ended up with the Cadillac taillight sticking out the back of them. When you're going down the road in this car in particular, what kind of reaction are you getting from people?
Oh, people are waving. They love this car. People like seeing these cars about. And it did have some elements that should be in cars today, like they have the Autotronic up there. I don't know why they're not using that in vehicles today.
To automatically dim the headlights.
Exactly. And this was a very well-built car.
And I bet it was very popular with every gas station owner in town.
Oh, well, that is a problem today.
Yeah. I love 1955 and 56 Mercs. To me, they look like a Ford that was taken to George Barris and he customized. I think they came out of the factory really gorgeous. And this 55 Mercury is really a fine example.
For us, this is a perennial parade favorite, especially when we've taken it out on St. Patrick's Day parades. And you know, this is a very nice styled automobile. It had a 292, 198 horsepower V8. Just an excellent machine for the year.
The 50s era, there were a lot of flashy color combinations from about 55 through 58. And this certainly it's not a quiet combination. You see this car coming down the road.
You sure do. This is a far cry from any color you want as long as it's black. I believe they had over 30 options on colors for this model year.
And speaking of options, there was one particular to this that was very unique, I thought.
And that would be great for the Mercury owner, and that was a automatic lubricating chassis. All one had to do was push a button and it lubricated.
So you didn't have to go into the garage and say, give me a lube job. You just pushed a button and there it went.
And you were done.
The Ford Motor Company began putting overhead motors in their products in 53 and 54. Do you think that was a great leap forward in engineering on these cars?
Oh, certainly it was, Lance. The earlier models had a propensity to overheat, and with this increase of power and size, they needed a better solution for that.
But those old flatheads, they really looked so cool.
Yeah, but these have a cool look to them as well.
Yeah, they do. Clark, this 1951 Frazer Manhattan has to be one of the rarest cars in the collection.
That is true. The Kaiser name was around for only a decade, but it sure added some stylistic elements that were far beyond its short time period. It was one of the first to have a full instrument crash pad. It also was one of the first to introduce dual tail lights, meaning it operated both as a stop and as directional and safety monitors as well. In addition, one of the stylistic elements of this was that the window frames did not go down. That is how they were when the top was down.
So it was a convertible, but it kind of wasn't totally open to the elements. You had that little bit of chrome reminding you that you know, you weren't totally free out there in the wind.
Yeah, always some chrome around you in that one.
These kind of the Kaisers and the Frazers did okay for a while, and then they had a hard time. I heard rumors about the manufacturing them. There was something that caused them to be difficult to build.
Well, one of the problems that Frazer faced was getting steel, which GM had undergone purportedly great efforts to prevent them from getting steel.
Yeah, it's one of those rumors, but may be true. Well, speaking of a convertible that the window frames don't go down, next to this is the epitome of the car that I think everyone thinks of when they think of a car that those window frames stay put. Can we take a look at that?
Sure.
Okay. A 1950 Nash Rambler custom Landau convertible. It's a mouthful, but it's also really gorgeous and very unique. I think the American automotive industry only made one model of something like this.
Yeah, well, this was an introduction into a compact American car that did quite well on its economy. It was $1,807, brand new, which was $40 less than the Chevy models of the time. One of the most distinctive elements that people grew to love about this car was the bridge beam design over the windows that served as rails for your convertible top going up and down.
Do you think anybody back then went, well, you know, this is a nice Chevrolet convertible, but we can get that Nash for $40 less. I wonder if that worked.
It's hard to believe, but yeah, back in 1950, that was a sales marketing tool for them.
Yeah, maybe back then somebody made $40 a week on their job, so it was a big deal. This has one distinctive thing that any lovers of comic books should know, or movies titled Superman. This has something very significant to it.
And that would be the Lois Lane car to it, because Lois Lane used to drive one of these automobiles.
Yeah, in the television series, this is what Lois Lane drove. This body style, they made 50 through 55, and then I understand in 58 they brought it back out again?
In 58 they did. It was widely successful in 58. It sold more than all the other production years combined.
And hey, I own one of them that was bought back then. So the size of this car is very small for that particular era. But now we think of a car this size as pretty normal, or even kind of big. I mean, it was a compact then, now it's a regular size car.
Yeah, and this car had a good cruising speed of 80 miles an hour, and it still got 30 miles to the gallon.
Wow. So if they brought this car out today, they probably could sell 2.
Not if they brought it out at the factory price.
Yeah, yeah.
I
Then
think they'd be selling a lot of
millions
these.
and millions and millions. A 1950 Studebaker convertible, very cool. One of the things that makes it really cool is this, the bullet nose. I just love that on these.
Yeah, that was a great aerodynamic feature that they added to it. They were picking up on the airplane designs of the era, and this was a very popular selling car.
They're a very unique design, very unusual. There's no other cars during 49 or 50 that looked like a Studebaker did. But on the other hand, the market seemed to just love these cars.
This Regal Deluxe model that was introduced in 1950, they produced like 8,800, I believe 8,874 of them, and people love this design.
It was so futuristic compared to the other cars of the time. I think at the time people would look at these cars and go, man, that looks like 1960. You know, it looks so far in advance. And in the not too many years after that, they started looking kind of silly compared to other cars. And the more boxy designs of, say, the Fords in that 1950 became more of a standard accepted design, and these were seen more as a well, you know, they tried to do something unusual, and they did, and now it looks kind of goofy. And then all of a sudden, about 10 years ago, everybody decided that bullet noses Studebakers were really cool, and they became in vogue again. In 1963, I found a beautiful 53 Pontiac convertible. It was bright red. I took my stepdad to look at it. He just didn't think it was right for a 16-year-old kid to be driving a red convertible, so I didn't become the new owner of it. But this brings back all that lust for that red convertible back then.
Well, and 53 was a splashy year for American automobile makers. It was the war had ended, the Korean War was winding down, and the cars started getting more flashy, a lot more production value to them, yet they retained some of their older elements. This chrome strip right here carries back from 1935. And here at Deer Park, 1953 for us is a very special year. That's kind of a banner year for us. We do have a lot of 53s. It also happened to be the wedding year for my parents.
So in 54 or 64, your parents were driving around these cars and thought, well, maybe it's time to have a son, and next thing you know, you appeared in the world?
Yeah, that might be.
Might be, yeah. This has something very distinctive about it that Pontiac featured, was the insignia, the plastic, which you could get those to light up.
Yeah, they had the Pontiac emblem that would do that.
There was an option. And speaking of things that light up, here in the building or throughout your collection, you have one of the best neon sign collections I've ever seen. It's just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, we have them from virtually all the major marques of the era.
And those came about just the same way the cars did? You and your dad kept your eyes open and they would pop up and you would buy them? And
yeah, we bought them from all corners of the country.
Well, they are absolutely gorgeous, as is this car and all the cars in this collection.
Thank you.
Clark, I want to tell you, this has been a wonderful tour of a wonderful facility. The cars are wonderful, the winery is wonderful, and I have a hunch the wine is probably wonderful too.
Well, I certainly hope you do enjoy it. This is winery from our Deer Park Escondido vineyard here. And although I'm pouring it into our tasting glasses, we here at Deer Park do describe the philosophy that everyone needs at least 1 or 2 glasses of wine a day.
This will be after we get done with the shoot. We'll each have one of those. Well, let's just see what we have here.
Salud.
Salud. You know, it has kind of a woody town and country taste to it, with just a little bit of an Edsel grill pucker. So,
I think it has more of a Cadillac finesse.
Very nice. Well, Clark, thank you again. If somebody wants to come take a look at the facility, see the cars, taste the wine, see the vineyard, how do they go about doing it?
They're welcome to coming out to our facility. Again, it's Deer Park Winery and Auto Museum. We're right here on Champaign Boulevard in Escondido. Or you can look it up on our website, deerparkwinery.com, and they're welcome to come on out and taste and kick tires.
Well, this is wonderful. And I might add that as good as it tastes, it's empty. Can we do something about that?
Yeah, we need that blue glass.
All right. Thank you for watching the show. We will see you again next week. See you then. Bye-bye.